Ladies and gentlemen, we back. And as you can tell by the title and by the background, I've decided to bring my talents back home and to try to build up something here in Chicago that is as close as possible to the glory days and what's behind me. As you can see, all of these banners, championship after championship after championship. I know I'm setting the bar high, but as Kanye once said, reach for the stars. So if you fall, you land on a cloud. But with all that being said, this is the first episode. Everything is still intact from the last series. Yes, we're going to have media questions. Yes, we're going to continue to do that before every episode. So yes, you can get locked in and busy in the comments and dropping all your questions and concerns. And yes, I will file through them every episode and try to figure out the best ones to answer. But in today's episode, as always, we're going to lay out everything and figure out the blueprint of what's in store for us as we figure out the direction of this team and how to make it back into a powerhouse winner. Along with that stuff, we're going to be going over the attention to detail roster and the sliders from SimGamingNetwrk. A lot of y'all have had questions and concerns and interests in everything that I've talked about leading up to this point. So we're going to simultaneously go over both while going through our roster and our direction for the Chicago Bulls. We do have the attention to detail random event generator that will be used in this series as well. It's a brand new one for the NBA 2K25 game. A lot of things to be excited for. I'm excited. I'm locked in. I know that y'all are. So without further ado, I want to hold y'all no more longer in this intro. Let's get it going. All right, y'all. So the first thing we're going to go over is the attention to detail random event generator created by Celtic LG. This is something you have to get at the attention to detail Patreon. It's very cheap and affordable. It's like a few dollars, and I think it's extremely well worth it. No matter if you're creating content, no matter if you're doing something in your own personal time, this will elevate your playing and simulation experience times 10. 2K can just have stale storylines and different things that happen around your simulation. This adds in unique real life stuff to kind of just randomly impact your simulation experience or whatever you want to call it. Very simply, it's broken down into time periods of your season. So at the bottom, you see we have pre-trade deadline, which is the early part of the season, trade deadline, post-trade deadline, playoffs, and then it goes into the off-season time periods, which is the coaching carousel, draft combine, NBA draft, free agency, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Broken down, in my opinion, perfectly. This is so super simple and easy to use and very straight to the point and self-explanatory that I think a lot of y'all will easily pick up on this. Even if it looks like it's a lot going on, trust me, you will get the hang of it. I'm going to break it down for you very simply, very fast. So right here, again, we have everything broken down in time periods, and then they have the number of events suggested for every single time period, which I think they have down to a T. So pre-trade deadline, early part of the season, you should be using this event generator once every week or 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks for me has always been perfect. But if you feel like, man, these events are so fun, I want to do one weekly, that's perfectly fine as well. But this isn't something you should be using 5 times in a week, or at the trade deadline, 2 or 3 events is perfect rather than 9 events. But at the end of the day, it's your world that you're creating. So feel free to do whatever it is that you want to do. I'm going to show you how to use it in the pre-trade deadline tab. So basically, what I've learned is the best thing to start with is the draw team, right? Naturally, last year for me, I did these events and I always went to draw the event. But what ended up happening is when you draw your event, it's going to give you a random one with the description. And then you're going to have to figure out what team to apply the event to, right? Sometimes you may want to apply the event to your personal team, and that's all that matters. But a lot of times I do it for the entire league, just to keep the entire league involved and have different storylines throughout my series. And what I've learned to do is start at draw team, because when you draw your event, then you're going to have to draw your team, and drawing your team will change the event. So I'll show you for an example. If I start with draw the event, you insert 1 or 0. So whatever is here previously, you do the opposite. So we have a 0 right there already. I'll type in 1. I'll do enter. It gave me event 19, which is help needed. Draw a team with one of the top tier. Draw a team with one of their top 5 players out with a long-term injury. Sign the best free agent that plays in the same position. You got a typo there, Celtic.
that plays the same position as the player injured. Give the free agent a 1-year deal, minimum salary, max 2 every year. So this is big, the notes part. Some of these events, they will have something as in the notes that says max 1 every year. So that means once you do it once, the next time you randomly generate an event, if it popped up again, you will skip it and do another one because you already did it once. This one's saying twice, so don't do this no more than 2 times in a year if you so, for whatever, decided to random event and it popped up twice. Now, back to what I was saying. Now that we have our event in our description at 19, when we go to figure out what team to apply this to, you'll see that our event will disappear. It changes the event as well. Sometimes you can just remember what event it was. I know it was 19 and I could just apply event 19 to team 19. But I'd rather do it this way and then I have everything synced up. So now that I started with my team, I got team 19, which is the Pelicans, and I have event number 2, and I can just apply it right through. And every once in a while, you'll have like an event that will cause you to draw a player because you don't know which player to attach this event to. But sometimes they'll tell you your top tier player, one of your top 2 players, any player. But if you need to, you can use this as well. It's very rare that I use draw player. But the description says draw a team that has won the last 2 games, go to their next game and select force win. So it's telling me that the Pelicans, but this is telling me that just go to a team that won the last 2 games. Right now, the phase that I'm in, everybody's 0-0. So I would just have to do another event. And actually, we can do that. Let's actually figure out what event we want to start with fresh into our series. Fire the GM of a team that's out of the playoff race. GM must have under contract. See, we can't do this one either because again we're 0-0. Let's just keep going until we find one. Decrease all players cold streak. Decrease all players attributes layup close mid for 5 each game. So cool. This is something that we can use. Team number is 10, which is the Bucks. This is extremely realistic because we see the Bucks are starting off slow. I guess they'll be starting off slow in our series as well. So we would decrease all of their players shooting attributes, layup, close, mid, and 3 by 5 for 3 games. So the first 3 games of the series, we're going to have the Bucks doing that. And that's just what you can do for every single time period. Again, and yeah, I love the tool. A lot of y'all see me use it in previous series and y'all were demanded for it in the last series. I'm glad that we have it back. Make sure y'all, if you use it, give a salute to Celtic LG and the attention to detail team because a lot of work goes into this year in and year out. Let's apply this to the Bucks. So before we add our random event to the Bucks, I think this is a great time to talk about the rosters. A lot of you guys are going to get this file, which is going to be a My Era scenario that you're going to have to download and jump into to have the rosters and the sliders. I'll have everything in the description of the video for anybody that's curious or want to use it. But when you open up that file, you're going to circle through teams and figure out what team you want to control. And some of the overalls are going to catch your eye, right? That's just the obvious. Tyrese Maxey is an 82. On the normal standard 2K game, he's not an 82. One of the guys that's really going to catch your eye because it happened to me, even somebody with experience of using his rosters. I saw Paolo Banchero at 80, and I immediately texted SimGamingNetwrk like, hey, are we sure Paolo Banchero is not going to be affected by being an 80 overall? Because that's a significant drop-off. And he told me what I'm going to tell y'all. Anything that you have to question, all you have to do is test it. Simulate a month into the season, simulate 2 months into the season, simulate a full season, and look at the results. And that's what you base everything off of. We have gotten so caught up in the overall part of this game because of the ratings reveal, the top 100 and the badges and everything, that we forgot that the game is more than just the attributes and ratings. I'm not here to say that their attributes and ratings have zero meaning because they do. They do mean things into the game, right? So it's important that Kyrie has a 91 mid, 87, like these, it has a place in the game, but it doesn't mean everything. There was a time in 2K where these attributes and ratings meant everything, but there's so much more into the game now, and plus you have all of the work that these guys put into the sliders that it all ties in together that makes these players produce at a certain level that you want them to produce at. And I am a person that gave it a test and saw the results. Paolo Banchero at an 80 overall was averaging 28 points per game, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists, even with the 80 overall. So I'm just putting that out there. One thing that is very important to know about the overalls is that attention to detail and Snipe, when they tested it a few years ago, they found out that intangible didn't do anything but boost and inflate or decrease and deflate players' ratings, right? So if we zeroed out Giannis's intangibles right now, he probably is not going to be a 90. He will maybe be an 89. And I'll show you right here. We can just edit his intangible. And I've done this before in one of my series, and I showed y'all this, but you zero it out. And in reality, Giannis is an 88 overall, right? He's an 88 overall player when you take out the intangible rate. The intangible doesn't make you run faster. It doesn't make you dunk more. It doesn't make you a better three-point shooter. It really just increases the overall. That's what's been tested and been told to me. And I believe it because I'm a person that plays the game, and I've seen players with high, low intangibles all over the league. It doesn't make sense. So what they did is they made it make sense. All of the top players, right? They went in and they zeroed it out to 25, and whoever had the highest overalls with a 25 intangible, they got the boost. And the reason that is because they want the best players to have some sort of gap between the rest of the NBA, as we see in real life. The best players, the top 10 players, are significantly better than the typical average player. So what they did was they gave the boost of intangibles to the top 15 players, I believe, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So yes, the top 15 players get a 99 intangible. The next 15 best players, which creates a top 30, they get a 75. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then everybody else in the league gets a 35 intangible, and that's the zeroed out amount. Everybody gets a 35. And that's just what that is. So that's why you'll see a Maxey have an 82. You'll see a Paolo Banchero have an 80. You're going to see all type of weird numbers next to players named Curry at an 87. But it doesn't mean everything, y'all. It does not mean everything. It really doesn't mean much because they're going to perform and produce the way that you expect them to in real life. And they're going to produce and perform better than they did when they had 87s and 88s or whatever next to their name. The reason being is because, number one, the sliders. Again, you're going to have to upload the sliders file, which will have everything in the description for anybody that wants to use exactly what I'm using. You have the sliders, and then they go in and they really use the tendencies. So they have the tendencies down packed. Again, this is why it's very, very important that we give them love and credit, because a lot of this takes so much time. And look at all of these tendencies. And they go into these guys, they look at what they're doing in real life. They go pull up the facts of what his hot zone at is, where his cold zones is at, how he's generating his points, his shot profile, where he's getting a lot of his touches and looks. And they go and they do it as accurate as possible. And that's how we get the results of these players that are kind of mirrored to real life. You're never going to get the exact product of real life basketball in a video game that 2K is producing. They only have as much tools as they can to fix the game. But this takes a lot of hours of work, a lot of testing, just to know what shot tendency means to the degree. To know exactly what it means, you have to test this so much just to know what one tendency thing means. You know what I'm saying? And they go in and they do it to a T, and these guys perform so well. Even when you're simulating, they're going to perform. Even when you're actually playing and controlling the players and the teams, they're going to perform as similar as they can to what real life looks like. You know, sometimes you'll play 2K with the standard rosters, and you'll get isolation possessions from guys that aren't isolation players. And you'll be like, what the hell? Why did he just do that? And now with this, you have less of that, and you'll have actually possessions where, you know, Luka is looking like a heliocentric player. Well, he'll go off and do his own thing. You know, he'll go and get an isolation. He'll bring the ball up and just shoot. It doesn't have to be so robotic like the standard 2K rosters, because this is the most important thing, in my opinion. The ratings are important. They do serve a purpose and they play a role, but the ratings don't mean, or the ratings and attributes don't mean anything if the players don't know how to use it. If the AI players don't know how to use it. And the tendencies, which is so much, this is so much. This is what makes a player say, I'm going to take a step back three, right? That's his patented move, a step back three. James Harden, step back three. These tendencies is what says he's going to do a step back, right? There is some tendency that says step back three. I wish I could pull it up. I'm looking for it. Driving step back tendency, it's at an 80. Way above Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis never does that. So, these are the things that I'm just highlighting in y'all mind, and you can go look and compare them to the regular rosters and see and everything, and you can play with the regular roster and then do another one with the regular roster, and you'll see the differences in how players play. And that's what SimGamingNetwrk comes into play, because he has the roster file, a slider file that allow these tendencies and these attributes to work smoothly within the game, because that's the other part of it, where you have these tendencies and these ratings and you do all of this, but then 2K has their own sliders. So the other side of it is we got to show love to SimGamingNetwrk, because he puts in the hours and the time to then go and curate the sliders around these attributes and these tendencies so that it can translate into the game of how we play, the feel of it. And again, I tested it last night by doing a practice with the Chicago Bulls, trying to get a feel for my team. It was night and day to what I was experiencing in the last series. I have no complaints or anything yet, because I haven't played the CPU of other teams, but we will see, and I will give them feedback, but they are very, very much improved. So anyway, with all that being explained, we do have to go to the Bucks and edit everybody's layup. And what I would do is you can edit the column, and we would drop everybody by 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we go to close shot, and again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mid range, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So boom, everybody on their team shooting is dropped by 5 for the first 3 games. I have to remember after the third game to go back and give them all that lift of 5. Now with our team and our roster, the Chicago Bulls, boom. I'm gonna be very clear and very direct. There are some things I like on this team. There are some things I'm not sure about. There are some things I'm positive we're going to do. And I do have some type of idea in my mind. What I really would love to gear this team to for the next phase of the direction we go into, I'm a big fan of the Brooklyn Nets team with D'Angelo Russell, that all-star year he had. It was him, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, Spencer Dinwiddie. I think Jared Dudley's on that team. Really, really fun team. That's a team that's, dancing and stuff, Millie rocking when guys are hitting threes. I would love to have a team like that and have Kobe White maybe be a little bit of the D'Angelo Russell for us. Really trying to empower him as a basketball player. But we're loving that we have Kobe White a part of our core. He's not a guy that we're going to make the face of the franchise and necessarily build around, but he is going to be a very big featured piece into the rebuild of what we're doing because of the way he plays basketball. He can play with the ball, play off the ball. He has a handle, can shoot at all 3 levels. He can score and be a factor at. So we love having a guy like him because it allows us to be creative in the draft and in the free agency and not have to worry about complementing play styles because he can damn near play with anybody, and he's kind of shown that through his early part of his career, playing with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Lonzo Balls, playing without them due to injuries and everything, and he's still been able to find himself having success. We love the version of Kobe White where he is going to have the ball a lot, though. We don't really want to come in here and bring too many players who's going to take the basketball out of his hands because we do like what we get when the basketball is in his hands, but we don't feel like we have to taper our talent that we're trying to upgrade in order to allow him to still get his shit off. So we like that about him. We really love Ayo because we feel like Ayo is one of those glue guys off your bench that can kind of come in and help increase you in any type of way. So if you need scoring, he can have scoring nights off the bench. You need defense, he can do that. Facilitating, he can do that. I love having a Swiss Army knife bench piece that can come in and just be a glue guy for us. And we want to kind of empower him in that direction and allow him to um, have his impact on the game on whatever he sees fit. Obviously, we like Modest Buzelis. I hate the fact that Io has 0 badges. We'll talk about the badges in a minute. We have Modest Buzelis, who we like. So that's 3 players that we're extremely intrigued with. Julian Phillips, I'm intrigued. I want to use some of this season to really get a feel on what he brings to the table and how much we value him when we talk about our core. And that's the same thing for Dalen Terry. That's the same thing for where is he at? Patrick Williams. And that's the same thing for Josh Giddey. It's a really big year for Josh Giddey because we have to figure out if we want to pay him the money he's going to be requesting and how we see him fitting into the next version of our team and whatever we draft. So this offseason is going to be extremely big for Josh Giddey and for the Chicago Bulls relationship. And then also Patrick Williams. I'm feeling the same thing. One of the things I'm already thinking about when I think about going into the offseason and the NBA draft is bringing in some wing talent here. I think we have some guards that I like. The center position is obviously something we would love to address as well, depending on where we're at in the draft. But Patrick Williams has to show us something more than being a two-way stretch four, right? Like that's just not he. There's so much more to him than just being a guy who's out there, quote unquote, to space the floor. And the money we're paying him at now with his new contract, expectations have grown and rise for Patrick Williams. So he is a guy that I'm not sure how I feel about. I'm not saying I don't want Patrick Williams to be a part of the core. I'm not saying I want Patrick Williams to be a part of the core. I'm saying he's one of the big guys that we have to figure out as far as our next direction. So that's pretty much that. When you go to the trade block for us, these guys aren't untouchable, but I just wanted to build some type of core in my mind to be able to see, but they're not untouchable at all. Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic will be on the trading block because we definitely want to figure out a way to bring in some value for them, especially because we want to start these guys off playing really well. And we want to open up the flexibility for us into the offseason and at the draft and accumulate as many assets as possible as we pivot into the next direction. So the first part of this season in the series will be to feature them highly in our offense, make them look as sexy as possible for other teams around the league, and hopefully we can ship them out and bring back some type of value. There was talks around Zach LaVine on offseason where you might have to attach a draft pick to trade him. That's not something that we're trying to do. We want to at least be able to bring in some type of young, intriguing talent or some type of draft capital instead of having to give up some to get rid of his contract. And the same thing with Vucevic. We want to be able to bring in somebody that's young or bring in a draft capital asset that will help us in our rebuilding stage. That's pretty much the blueprint with our team and our roster right now. Definitely want to figure out ways to get Lonzo back into the mix and figure out, like I said, a lot of stuff for these other players. Outside of everything that we talked about with the roster, there's not much is here. I'm not attached too much to Jalen Smith. I'm not attached to who else is on this. I'm not attached to THT or Torrey Craig. And I might figure out a home for Cuzzo Javon just because there's so many guards here. I don't really want to run a team with my cousin on here and have him getting DNPs. And I'm definitely not trying to get fired by being like, hey, Cuzzo, you the starting point guard over Kobe White. You know what I'm saying? So we might try to figure out a situation where Cuzzo can go and compete and add his defensive tenacity and catch and shoot at the guard position to a team that could really use him. I'm going to try to get Cuzzo that ring. You get what I'm saying? So this is a list of like guidelines that Celtic LG had when he was creating a roster. I had it sent to me because I need to mimic it for my draft class file because there's no sense in having all of this stuff in one file. Then I'm bringing in a draft class that disrupts everything that he kind of set up. So I had to go into my draft class and make sure everything is lined up perfectly for the series. And some of these things stood out to me, and I wanted to kind of relay the message to y'all. And one of the things that you'll see right here is the badges. He says the following badges can be assigned, but they boost sim percentage by a lot. It's suggested to only assign them before games. So if you ever in your simulation is stopping and saying, hey, I'm going to play that game, before you play the game, you can go and assign these badges to specific people that you think sees fit. So if I was to stop and play the Warriors or something like that, I would go and make sure that Curry probably has Limitless Range Hall of Fame. Or if I was playing, the Mavericks, I'm going to make sure Kyrie got Dead Eye or something like that. But as soon as you're done playing that game, before you continue to simulate, you need to make sure that these are not involved. Also, on the attention to detail roster, he said, we removed the following badges: immovable enforcer, strong handler, rebound chaser, unpluckable, after testing for causing gameplay issues. So these badges are all right there to tell you that. It also tells you a little bit of an explanation behind the tendencies. So something like play discipline should be rated between 10 and 80. So a 10 level discipline, play discipline attribute for the tendencies is like Kobe and MJ scores. It allows them to really go off and do their own shit. And an 80 is for a guy like Aaron Wiggins on the OKC Thunder, who is more of a role player, there to kind of play it. And it tells you it influences the ability of a scorer to break the play and create a shot for himself. Dribble moves should have 0, 5, and 10 as their values, nothing more. No dribble should be 95 to 99 for bigs, because you don't really want bigs out there doing much. Obviously, outside of the exception of some of the other bigs. And yeah, player moves. That's what I talked about with the Luka step back. Should be rated with the 0 to 10, 25, 50, 80, 99 scale based on frequency of that particular. For some moves, 80 is the threshold to see that move utilized often. So when a player has a patented move, 80 is where you should see it at. So like you seen with Luka in his step back, it was at an 80. So when you play Luka, you're guaranteed to see him do that move, as you would in real life. And then it talks about the peak start and stuff for draft players. I don't think y'all care too much about that. And the same thing with here. This is just more about the actual draft class added. But I just thought that was interesting, that when you look in the roster, you will see players not having these badges, and for testing they cause gameplay issue, which makes a lot of sense, because a lot of us have complained and talked about, when you start to simulate, you'll see really good teams like the Celtics. Historically, they perform and play bad during 2K sims, and I'm thinking it's because of like what they said. It's some of these badges causing a lot of situations in the simulator that allows teams to not perform at the level that you thought. So that's a wrap for episode 1. I hope y'all enjoyed every single thing that we went over. The next episode will be a lot more action and a lot more jam-packed, because it will be a lot less explaining and going over things. So I appreciate y'all patience as always. Feel free to step in the comments and get your post-game or press conference questions ready as we start the actual season of the Chicago Bulls rebuild. And let me know some names for what I should call this series. That I should have came up with this before episode 1, huh? I'll figure out something. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. See y'all soon. I'm out. Peace.